Sunset family. Glad you're joining me this morning. Hopefully, with the governor lifting the some restrictions, hopefully this will be the last video that we'll have to make. But just be patient with us. We're trying to, figure out ways that we can safely open that appeals to the restrictions and to the health and well-being of our members. So just like I said, just be patient with us. We understand we all right now want to just throw trouble and whatever to the wind and just start meeting together again. But like I said, just be patient. That day will come. We just have to wait patiently for it. Well, let's get into the lesson this morning. Kinsley, she was in my Wednesday video. I had to lock the door to make sure nobody came and messed with me this morning. She's starting to get at that age where that question comes out. If you're a parent, you know exactly what question I'm talking about. Why? Well, don't touch that. Why? Because it can hurt you. Don't touch that. Why? Or when you tell them no, they can't have, candy at 10 o'clock at night. Well, why not? It's that question of why. And I say, talking about her being, 3 years old and constantly asking that question, why? This last week, I told her to put something down because she was fixing to break it, and she just, a couple times of why? Why would it break? And then finally, she just gave me one of these, literally said, hey, you have hammers. You can fix it. But that question of why, it even plagues us as adults. We're told to stay home. There's these restrictions, and but why? Why should we? Why should I? I think that's the biggest one. Why should I? We often have these questions that we want answers to, but sometimes we really don't get an answer, or we don't like the answer we're given. This morning, I'm going to try to get through this, but I want to be in the book of Habakkuk. We have this prophet, and the time being is right before Nebuchadnezzar comes and, invades Judah and takes them back to Babylon. Well, Daniel and the boys get taken back to Babylon. This is right before that happens. And we have this prophet of Habakkuk. And it's only 3 chapters, but he has this question, or actually he has 2 questions. And he asks the Lord, he goes, it's pretty much asking God, why are you allowing these evils to happen amongst the nation of Judah? He's like, why is this stuff happening? Why are you allowing this stuff to happen? So we're going to jump in there. We're going to start out in verse 2 of Habakkuk. It says, how long, O Lord, will I call for help, and you will not hear? I cry out to you violence, yet you do not save. Why do you make me see iniquity and cause me to look on wickedness? Yes, destruction and violence are before me. Strife exists and contention arises. Therefore the law is ignored and justice is never upheld. For the wicked surround the righteous. Therefore justice comes out perverted. That's the first question. He's like, why, Lord? Why are you letting all this stuff happen right here in the nation of Judah? And I think sometimes we have to ask ourselves why. We look to God and we're like, well, why is this happening to us right now? Why are we in lockdown? Why is this virus? Why is, all this stuff happening to us? Maybe sometimes we've got to look at what we're doing. That's what's happening to the nation of Judah right now. All this violence that he's talking about right here, Habakkuk, he's not talking about the violence around him. He's talking about the violence of his own nation. The unjust, the wickedness, the unrighteousness, it's all happening in the nation of Judah. And he's just like, God, why are you letting this happen? Many times, whatever it might be, we often have that question of why is God letting this happen? Why did God let that happen? We see through this. I mean, we see through Job. It's our choices. It's our actions. I mean, we're going to see further on in this letter. We have got to just wait for God to do whatever His will is and not let our feelings cause us to go further into calamity. But then, starting in verse 5, is God's answer. He says, look among the nations, observe, be astonished, wonder, because I am doing something in your day. You will not believe it if you were told. For behold, I am raising up the Chaldeans, that fierce and impetuous people who march throughout the earth to seize dwelling places that are not theirs. They are dread and feared, their justice and authority ordinated within themselves. Their horses are swift than leopards, and keen than wolves in the evening. Their horsemen come galloping. Their horsemen come from afar. They fly like eagles, swooping down to devour. All of them come from violence. Their horde are faces moving forward and collecting captives like sand. They mock at kings and rulers and are laughing matters to them. They laugh at every fortress and heap up rubble to capture it. Then they will sweep through like the wind and pass on, but they will be held guilty. They whose strength is their own God. He's sitting here, Habakkuk, he's sitting here asking, why is all this happening? Why is all these bad things happening in the nation of Judah? Why is this happening? He wants this answer from God. I mean, often, like I said, we want that why. We want to know why this is happening to us. Why are we asked to be, stay at home and not go to worship and all these things? And then, it's sometimes, like I said, it's not the answer we want to hear. I mean, just think of Habakkuk right then. He asked the Lord, why do I see all this violence and this unrighteousness right here in front of me? And God's just like, you know what? To end that unrighteousness that's in your nation, I'm raising up the Chaldeans. I'm sending Babylon to capture you, to take over. And we're like, well, why does God... I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. But that's the next question Habakkuk asked. Why would God use someone wicked, this wickedness to punish those in the nation of Judah? It's like, why, God? Why do you let these bad things happen? I mean, I can't help but think of the book of Job, where we see God. It's not that He's not there. He's there. But the whole principle of it is, are you going to trust God through everything? Through all that can happen to you, are you going to trust in God? So let's look at that second question that Habakkuk has. He says, are you not from everlasting, O Lord, my God, my Holy One? We will not die. You, O Lord, have appointed them to judge, and you, O Rock, have established them to correct. Your eyes are too pure to approve evil, and you cannot look on wickedness with favor. Why do you look with favor on those who deal treacherously? Why are you silent when the wicked swallow up those more righteous than they? Why have you made men like the fish of the sea, like creeping things without rule over them? The Chaldeans bring all of them up with a hook, drag them away with their nets, and gather them together in their fishing nets. Therefore they rejoice and are glad. Therefore they offer a sacrifice to their net and burn incense to their fishing nets, because through these things their catch is large, and their food is plentiful. Will they therefore empty their nets and continually slay nations without sparing? I will stand on my guard post and my station, myself on the rampart, and I will keep watch to see what he will speak to me, and how I may reply when I am reproved. And there we go. He's asked that question. He's like, why would you let the Babylonian nation, these Chaldeans, come and just take nations apart and just plumage them and take what they want and do what they want? And he's like, why does it seem like you're just turning a blind eye to the wickedness and destroying those that are, righteous and praising you? But are they really? We see rise and fall of nations throughout, God leading Israel throughout the Bible. And what happens? Every time it seems that they go away from God, they start to make their own gods. Well, let's go ahead. I'm trying to get through all this scripture. Let's go ahead and look at God's answer to that second question. Starting in verse 2 of chapter 2, he says, "Then the Lord answered me and said, record the vision and inscribe it on a tablet, that the one who reads it may run. For the vision is yet for the appointed time. It hastens towards the goal and will not fail. Though it tarries, wait for it, for it will certainly come, and it will not delay. Behold, as for the proud one, his soul is not right within him, but the righteous will live by his faith. Furthermore, wine betrays the haughty man, so that he does not stay home. He's enlarged his appetite like Sheol, and he is like death, never satisfied. He also gathers to himself all nations and collects to himself all peoples. Will not all of these take up the tyranny against him? Even mockery and insolation against him, and say, woe to him who increases what is not his. For how long and make himself rich with loans? Will not your collectors rise up suddenly, and those who collect from you awaken? Indeed, you will become plunder for them, because you have looted many nations. All the remainder of the people will loot you, because of human bloodshed and violence done to the land, to the town and all its inhabitants. Woe to him who gets evil gain from his house, to put his nest on high, to deliver from the hands of calamity. You have devised a shameful thing for your house, by cutting off many people, so that you, sinning against yourself, surely a stone will cry out from the wall, and the rafters will answer it from the framework. Woe to him who builds a city with bloodshed, and found a town with violence. It is not indeed from the Lord of hosts that people toil for fire. The nations grow weary from nothing, for the earth will be filled with the knowledge and the glory of the Lord, as the waters covers the sea. Woe to you who make your neighbors drink, who mix in your venom even to make them drunk, so that you can look on their nakedness. You will be filled with disgrace rather than honor. Now you yourself drink and expose your own nakedness. The cup is in the Lord's right hand and will come around to you, and utter disgrace will come upon your glory. For the violence done to Lebanon will overwhelm you, and the devastation of its beasts by which you terrified them, because of human bloodshed and violence done to the land, to the towns, and to all its inhabitants. What profit is it to idol when its maker has to carve it? Or an image, a teacher of falsehood, for its maker trusts in its own handiwork. When we fashion speechless idols, woe to him who says to the piece of wood, awake, or to a mute stone, arise. And that is your teacher. Behold, it is overlaid with gold and silver, and there is no breath at all inside it. But the Lord is in his holy temple. Let all the earth be silent before him. I mean, God comes back with this answer, and I mean, it's not what we want to hear. It's literally calling out all of our faults, our downfalls. It's saying, hey, we make everything our own God. He tried to tell them, hey, they're going to be punished because they make their strength their God. And then he's like, well, why are you letting that this wickedness of Babylon come in and, wreck the righteous? And then, God kind of puts it back on him. He's like, what righteousness do you see? What righteousness do you see when everything you've built up has been with bloodshed and whatever it may be? I mean, look at us right now. We ask these questions, we ponder, we want to know, we want answers, and we're not getting the answer we want, or we're not getting an answer at all. We do what we see is right in our own eyes. By Habakkuk, he's like, I'm going to sit here and wait till I get an answer from the Lord. Sometimes we've got to wait. We can't just do what we see fit in our own eyes and say that it's God's way. It's not. That's what we wanted. That's what we thought we needed. I'm thinking to get on a soapbox here. Sorry. But in these past days, we see, Christians in the news for getting tickets for, being told not to gather at the church in their cars. And they refused. They put that, those that have authority over them, that in like Titus 3 that we're told to just, be peaceable to the authorities that may be. We see, people being deputized for they can go to church. Churches that refuse to listen and obey the laws of the land. I talked last week about influence. What kind of influence do we show in the world when we can't ourselves follow? I mean, I think that's what Habakkuk's doing here. He's just like, why, Lord, why are these bad things happening to us as these righteous Christian people when we'll turn around and do unrighteous and do what we see fit in our own eyes and then be like, well, why is this wickedness coming upon us? Because we didn't sit back and wait for God to do his will. We inserted our will. When we're told, hey, you shouldn't, for the health of others and all this, we shouldn't meet at church and just stay at home. But when we just say, you know what, we're going to open the church building because it impedes with our worship. Does it? Because Habakkuk, he says here and gives us a perfect example. In a world just gone, when he calls it violence and unrighteousness right inside of his face. He said, He said his worship, he was going to do it himself. He would wait for the Lord. If you truly think this impedes worship when it comes to meeting at a building or gathering together, yes, get me wrong. The assembly of us as Christians together is a much needed thing. It is, it gives us accountability and encouragement. I totally understand that. But being away for a little time is not impeding our right to worship God. Because that starts with us. Every single day we wake up and we're breathing on this earth to say, thank you, God, and I'm going to worship and pray you. Okay, I'm got to get off here because my little soapbox and get back to Habakkuk. Because I think that's where I was trying to lead in with that. Because chapter 3 is not a question. It's not an answer. It actually is a psalm. It's a Hebrew song. It turns into this song. And I think it comes back to everything that Habakkuk's dealing with. He's just like, no matter what situation, Babylon's on its way. They're going to seize us and invade us and take and plunder us like, he's like, but I am going to trust in you. Let's read chapter 3. It says, a prayer of Habakkuk the prophet according. Lord, I have heard the reports about you, and I fear. O Lord, revive your work in the midst of these years. In the midst of the years, make it known. In wrath, remember mercy. God comes from Temeh, and the Holy One from Mount Paran. His splendor covers the heavens, and the earth is full of his praise. His radiance is like the sunlight. He has rays flashing from his hands, and there is hiding in his power. Before him goes pestilence, and the plagues come after him. He stood and surveyed the earth. He looked, startled the nations. Yet the promiscuous mountains were shattered. The ancient hills collapsed. His ways were everlasting. I saw the tents of Cush under distress. The tents, curtains of the land of Midian were trembling. Did the Lord rage against the rivers? Or was your anger against the rivers? Or was your wrath against the sea, that he rode on your horses, on your chariots of salvation? Your bow was made bare. Your rods of chastisement were sworn. You cleaved the earth with rivers. Your mountains saw you and quaked. Downpours of water swept by. The depths uttered forth its voice. It lifted high its hands. The sun and moon stood in their place. They went away in the light of your arrows, at the radiance of your gleaming spears. Your indignation, you marched through the earth. In anger, you trampled the nations. You went forth from the salvation of your people, for the salvation of your anointed. You struck the head of the house of evil, to lay him open from thigh to neck. You pierced with his own spears the head of his throngs. They stormed in on us to scatter us. Their exclusion was like those who devour the oppressed in secret. You trampled on the seas with your horses, and on the surge of many waters. I heard, and my inward parts trembled. At the sound, my lips quivered. Decay entered my bones, and in my place I trembled, because I must wait quietly for the day of distress, for the people to rise who will invade us. Though the fig tree should not blossom, and there be no fruit on the vine, though the field or the yield of the olive should fail, and the fields produce no food, though the flock should be cut off from the fold, and there be no cattle in the stalls, yet I will exult in the Lord, and I will rejoice in the Lord of my salvation. The Lord God is my strength, and he has made his feet like hinds' feet, and makes me walk on my high places. I mean, it all gets down to those last few verses. He says, if the fig doesn't produce fruit, if the vine doesn't produce grapes, he says, if there's no sheep, there's no cattle, guess what? I'm still going to exalt in the Lord, because the Lord is my strength. He says, it gives me these, it's talking about these feet like a deer, that I can go on high places. He says, he started out with these questions of why you do these things. Why are you letting wicked things happen? But he ends with, guess what? You are my strength, Lord, and I will exalt you through whatever situation may be at hand. And I think that's where we need to end. We need to be right there with Habakkuk saying, hey, the Lord is my strength. I don't put my trust in these gods that I've built around me. I put my trust in God. I put my trust in God to bring me salvation. And I'm not going to trust in the nation that I live. I'm going to put my trust in God's holy nation. You know, we make a lot of idols. Like this one. We don't see it as an idol. And we think just because it says, in God we trust. Well, I'm only going to put my trust in God. Not the man-made things that make it seem like we can trust in Him. God calls us to be different. He calls us to be this holy nation, this spiritual nation, not this physical nation. And He says, hey, look to me, trust in me in all things. Put me first, because I am your strength. He's the only place we get it. And if you need strength of the Lord, if you need to be placed in those healing waters of baptism, because guess what? He brought forth salvation through His one and only Son. He went upon that cross for you and for me, and He bled those horrific wounds on that cross. That way you and I could be covered in that blood and rise up a new creation, a creation of a spiritual nation that rises above all these worldly things and calls us to walk in a manner pleasing to God. Sorry I went a little long this morning, but I look forward to getting back to worshiping and praising God, hopefully next Sunday. And I hope that y'all look forward to it as well. If there's anything we can do for y'all, just call the office, call me, and we'll do whatever we can to help y'all in this time of need. Y'all have a blessed and wonderful Sunday.